Thanks a lot for this kind introduction and also for giving me the chance to talk here. I must admit, at the beginning of the week, I felt a little bit down and was a bit frustrated. But now at the end of the week, because of this conference and because of all the talks and the discussions, I feel much better. So my subject is bionic lightweight design and functional morphology. And my name is Christian Hamm, and I come from the Alfred Wegener Institute in Bremerhaven. What is it? It's basically a big research institute focusing on polar and marine research. It does a lot of climate research. It has a huge icebreaker and stations on the Antarctic continent. Actually, the focus is somewhere else. But since a couple of years, we are allowed or even obliged to do some technology transfer. And if you look at this zodiac, it's about the size we have right now. And we think that because we are rooted in basic research, we have an extremely high potential for disruptive technology transfer. There are also many institutions which do only applied research. They develop new, ways to form metals and so on, and alloys and so on, which is very important. But I think biomimicry gives us the chance to do disruptive technology transfer. You all know these definitions of biomimicry or bionics. I think they are, right now, they are quite good. But what Codrain said right now, it's still not in there how to really transfer it. It's still very difficult. And I think this is normal. Okay. And this is our approach, how we do it. We think that a combination of basic research, applied research without the industry first to get the principles, then project with the industry, and finally contract research is the ideal thing to do if you do biomimetics. And this is our interpretation. It has changed a little bit, but basically it's the same. We have basic research in marine science, applied research. Some people are from biomimicry studies. And then we have engineers who do the industry projects and contract research. So the ecosystem we are working in is the marine ecosystem. It's quite huge. And you see the light areas are chlorophyll concentrations which are higher. And you also see that it's not where the most light is, but where the most nutrients is, where the highest concentration of chlorophyll you find, and especially in the core areas of the Alfred Wegener Institute in the Arctic and in the Antarctic, you have high concentrations of plankton. And the organisms we are working with are a bit unusual because they are unicellular organisms, but they have very intriguing forms. The first group are the radiolarians, and you see a huge variety of very complex forms there. This is a very good light microscopy picture, but if you go closer to the organisms, you see that it has already very nice solutions for lightweight structures. You see a high moment of inertia. If you cut here, you see these typical I-beams. And you have also very elegant and very well-solved transitions from this vertical to the spheres. But even more important than the radiolaria are for us the diatoms. And the diatoms are also unicellular, but these are algae. And they already have very interesting forms. They are close to technical forms often because you have these triangles, you have quadrats, and all these things. But the basic form is that of a pillbox. So it's a box, more or less, with an upper lid and a lower part. And if you look at one of these lids, it looks like that. So, and again, as an engineer, you see immediately that they are very good lightweight constructions, and what differentiates these structures from technical structures is that they are usually much more complex. So in basic research, we have something to do, and we started already 13 years ago. The topic is functional morphology. It's the combination or the interaction of form and function. And the general hypothesis is that selection pressure generates stable lightweight constructions in these diatoms and in the radiolarians. And one of the reasons is that there's feeding pressure, of course. They cannot hide anywhere because they're in the open ocean. They float there, and then come these guys and try to feed on them. They are a little bit smaller than krill, but they are extremely abundant, and of course they are much bigger than are the diatoms. And this is the situation. You have something like an arms race between defensive structures here in the diatoms and the aggressive copepods with their feeding tools. And of course they don't want to be eaten, and these want to eat. So nature creates all these forms in order to, well, facilitate survival. And just to show that also the other side is very interesting, we are not much into it, but it's also important to know. These are the gnato bases or feeding tools of copepods, and what you see in orange or red is chitin, which you would expect. But on the tip, you have these green things. This is silica. Silica in a copepod, in a crustacean, is quite unusual. But even more unusual is that you have these blue areas here, and this is resin. And it is just underneath the silica, and it's a very flexible material, and it prevents that these things break while they eat the diatoms. So it's really also very highly developed. The next question, of course, is why do they have to be lightweight? And the answer is more or less Stokes' law. So if you have a particle the size of a diatom and you have a massive armor, they would sink very fast to deeper layers. And diatoms can also survive in the upper about 100 meters, depending on the area where you are, because they have to do photosynthesis. So this is the reason they have to be light. And of course, we tested it. We calibrated glass microneedles. This is a single diatom, and I think it's yes. And so we increased the pressure gradually and could find out what forces were necessary to break these cells. And the forces were quite amazing. They were between 300 and about 700 micronewtons, which is not much for an engineer, but if you transfer it to pressure in tons per square meter, it's about 700 tons per square meter. And what we found out also is that the structure plays a major role. So the stress is distributed very well within the structure. Therefore, these are really very good lightweight construction, and the hypothesis is not verified, but it's close to it. And in order to investigate these structures more closely, we have to find ways to get more information on the 3D structure of these things. And to do this, we use confocal laser scanning microscopy, which is important because then we can get the whole 3D structure, in contrast to scanning electron microscopy. And we can make all sorts of tests with them and find out how they interact with the aggressive structures. This is all very nice, but that is not biomimetics, of course. The product is something like that. We write articles and books, not enough in our world, but we do. But the question is, what would you do with this? What we have is, we have good properties of these plankton exoskeletons. They are mechanically strong. They are very light. You have an optimized geometry. The material seems to be also optimized. And then you have some additional properties, such as they are highly permeable because they have to take up nutrients. And it seems that they can reduce vibration due to an irregular and non-periodic pattern. And with this, we come to the applied research. Here we develop methods. And a new way, a new approach now to analyze material properties has been done by someone else, by people from Trondheim and California. Using a focused ion beam, you can cut very simple beams out of the very complex diatom shell, and you can use standard tests to see how strong they are. And the material seems to be enormously strong. So the values they found out are well over 3,000 Newton per square millimeters. And that is about 10 times as strong as conventional steel for a material which is really, well, it is produced at low temperature, low pressure, and it's obviously environmental friendly. And the question is, what is the reason for this? And in order to find out something about the material, we did some analysis of the nanostructures. And you see already here in an ultra-thin section of the diatom silica that it's not a homogeneous material, such as glass, but it's very granular and it doesn't break exactly like glass, but it has a plastic part of the deformation. And here you even seem to have layers and fibers within the silica, which gives an enormous potential, because if they can structure their nanostructures, you can have a different set of composites in each of these different forms. And this makes a lightweight construction much stronger. The problem is these pictures are only in 2D, so you don't get enough information on the material. And what we do now is to analyze these things in 3D. There is a group in Hamburg at the DAISY Institute. They developed a new method to analyze these structures with an extremely high resolution. They use a certain kind of optics, which is called Lewy Lenses. And they are the only people in the world who can really make them very precise. And they have the world record in resolution with this method with 7 nanometers, which is extreme for an optical method. They use shortwave X-ray beams. So this is, we have to do that, and, but this is very far from an application. We have to understand it, and maybe then we can reproduce the material or reproduce the principles of the material in the structures. A problem is that these X-rays are so hard that the silica, the mass, the atomic mass of the silica is a bit low, and you don't get enough contrast to see a very good pictures. And therefore, we used another organism, which is an acantarian. They use strontium sulfide to build their shells. And strontium, of course, is a very heavy element. And there you can really see much more. And if you look at it, how it is structured, is also very interesting. We don't know as much as with the diatoms, but they have exactly the same problems. They have to be relatively light. They have to be very strong. Although the material itself, strontium sulfide, is not a good material from the beginning, but in combination with layers and composite structures, it is very strong. Another thing we do in applied science, still without the industry, is developing algorithms. If you look at diatoms, they often have these honeycomb sandwich constructions. And the honeycombs are usually not as regular as technical honeycombs are, but they are irregular. You have pentagons, hexagons, heptagons. You have thick and thin walls between them. You have small and large cells. And this gives you a huge amount of flexibility if you want to optimize a structure. And we started actually with a bachelor thesis to create these algorithms and to create better solutions for honeycomb sandwich constructions. And we have developed it further to get even more flexibility to create structures like this, but also like this. And if you look how the algorithm works, you can really, in combination with an optimization tool, create much better honeycombs for lightweight constructions. So this is amazing. You can even create this geometry. And it saves a lot of time because doing all these structures using computer-aided design is really extremely time-consuming, even if you have a good engineer. And this facilitates optimization tremendously. Okay, and this is only in 2D, of course. In order to make it better, we need, in addition, 3D, so a third dimension. And this can be also done using this algorithm by different kinds of depth. And now, and of course, the organisms are not flat in their walls like this is, but they have a certain geometry which looks more or less like this. And this can be also altered. We can now create variable honeycombs according to the needs we have in the technical application. This is a sort of 3D, but the real 3D is, of course, grids. And you can use the same principles for grids. They are also irregular. They are not the standard cells you often have with these technical grids, but they are very variable in size. They can be adapted to well, irregular structures. If you have a standard cell, it's often cut in the middle. It's not the case here. And you even can create anisotropic material properties using an isotropic material. So, but this is necessary in order to have the tools to go to the industry and to propose projects with them. And another thing is that they like standards often. And therefore, we have developed a product development process which is very close to the ones which are used by the industry. It's called Evolutionary Light Structure Engineering, or ELISE, and it is a systematic process to use natural structures for engineering. If you look at this, it has all the typical steps you also have in a technical product development process. Of course, if you do optimization, you have to know exactly what you have to optimize it for. So you need the technical specifications, especially the load cases, the material, the production methods. Then we do a screening together and we create concepts. That's also done in the technical world, but here we are completely different because we use natural data for this. And then, of course, we end up with design proposals, and at the stage of optimization, we again go to nature and use genetic algorithms and evolutionary strategic optimization. And finally, of course, in order to have the product ready, you have to look at restrictions for production and so on. So this is more or less like a toolbox, and we use many things the traditional engineers also use, like topology optimization, computer-aided design, and finite element analysis. So, but here again, what we do different and completely different than the engineers is that we are able to create radically new design concepts. This is almost impossible for engineers if they sit in their rooms and have their tools. Their nature gives us a tremendous advantage. And second, we combine it with an intensive optimization, which is also based on natural processes. And this together is really unique. And I will show you an example of an A-pillar, which is one of the typical car parts, which are now have to be lighter because they have to reduce CO2. Just to give you an idea how we proceed, we have one of the largest collections of diatoms in our house. So we are also still working with microscopes. We have about 100,000 slides where the diatoms already sit there and can be put under a light microscope. And in addition, we have about 30,000 small vials where you have raw materials and you can go to the electron microscope and you can get the 3D information better. So this is one part. We also created a database where we have honeycomb sandwich constructions in different variants, or we have stable lightweight constructions and edge reinforcements. Where is it here? So this is a database, but to be honest, we don't use this very often because we have certain highlights already, and we have lots of people with experience, and we don't need that really very often. To give you an idea how different concepts could look like in an A-pillar, in a B-pillar, you have these diagonal crimps, which are also present in diatoms, which just stiffen the structure. There are the longitudinal crimps, and here is a polymer inlay. And all these concepts get a chance to develop. And for this, we use evolutionary strategic optimization. So you get a parametric model which can be changed in certain ways. For instance, this had 5 parameters which could change. The struts could go up and down, and the footprint could broaden or become more narrow, and so on. And it creates, for instance, 5 offspring. And then it's calculated, and the best one is allowed to reproduce further. And here you see over 300 generations, the weight of these structures comes from about 450 tons to 360 tons. And what is nice, you also see that the offspring is not always better. Sometimes it's worse, but still on the long run, there's hope. And now to see again the whole story is you have, of course, you have to analyze the load cases exactly. You have to know what you have to optimize for. We had an example where the load cases were not complete, and then we optimized the structure, and then we had a wonderful result, and then the customer came and said, oh, we have one more. Right. And then we could forget the whole optimization. And this is a really critical thing, that you can be as good as you want, and the principles in nature can be as good as possible if you don't have this information here. Okay, the screening ended up with, it was a sponge finally, and not a diatom, which had this interesting framework. And you see that after optimization, it looked completely different. And then we were thinking of considering the production process also, because they had a very complex form of steel. It's so-called tailored blanks with different qualities of steel at different levels. And what we did is make a simple steel structure out of just one steel and combine it with this inlay. And the combined product was much better than this. And it was not necessarily more expensive because this process was simplified. So completely another example you see here. We had a project with an offshore company. They were creating these offshore foundations, so-called tripods. And they are about 770 tons heavy and 50 meters high. And in our screening, we found that there are many tetraedric structures among the radiolarians, and we tested a lot of them. We analyzed them with forces and moments typical for this structure. And then we had an abstraction of these geometries, because otherwise you can't produce it. And it's also very difficult to optimize such a complex structure using these computer methods. And after optimization, we were at 361 tons. If we used steel tubes, it was even a bit lighter. But after making it ready for production, it was about 400 tons. So it works in completely different industries. We have also examples in household goods and in all sorts of different, industries. And it's difficult because they all work a little bit different. But on the other hand, it makes you more independent from if you just have the car company as a customer and they crash in regular periods, such as every 10 times you have a crash, and they stop every project. So it's better to have a larger diversity. Now the question is, what is good about this ELISE production process? You can use reliable structures. You can use structures which are really have been tested for millions of years, and it's also interesting that they have to be quite robust. So you cannot focus as such a structure on just one single load case, but you have to consider other events as well. So they are very good generalists, and they are specialized for their environment. Then if you have optimization, you usually don't have a single hill you have to climb, but it's a whole mountain range. So, and you don't see anything. You just see it's going up or it's going down. And therefore, it's important to look at different approaches to solutions. And what we do is that we start at different points here, and therefore we increase the chance to get a very good solution. We cannot promise to have the optimal solution, of course, but the chance is higher to go close to the optimal solution. And of course, the design is always a topic. The design of these natural structures are always very good, and we just cannot avoid the topic design in our work. Now, how do we use the biomimetic algorithms? You have all heard probably of this new method, additive manufacturing. And it gives you the opportunity to create extremely complex geometries, not just simple geometries such as in folding steel sheets or whatever, but you can create almost any geometry. And therefore, this is very good for bionic lightweight design because it has to be complex in order to be good. So you want this, and this is the method to do it. And of course, you get a better performance if you are able to create something like that. And of course, these lattice structures I showed you before are ideal for this method. The problem still is that the method is not really ripe. It has still a lot of problems. If you have structures inside, you don't see if they are good or not. The surface is rough, and the stuff is extremely expensive. Still, we had a project where we created a bicycle made in additive manufacturing in aluminum, where we used these algorithms here where the highest loads are at this position and also at other positions, and it worked very well. And we put it at the Hanover Trade Fair, and we had a lot of people who were interested in buying it. And then we said, okay, it's about 15,000 euros. And then the enthusiasm was not so big anymore. But it shows that it really works, and it's really a nice approach. And the technology will develop, of course, and I think there's a lot of potential. The frame was about 2 kilograms, so it's really, really light. Okay, so we are quite bold. We think that additive manufacturing is ideal for the production, for our production process. But our production process is also very good for additive manufacturing. So a short summary now. With the help of biomimicry, we definitely can improve structural lightweight design with this standard process, which is quite, well, it takes a long time and it's quite expensive. So you need big projects in order to start, but also with these algorithms, which are much easier and much faster. But you can't use that for everything. We see a lot of potential to create innovative materials, such as the silica. It's really very intriguing, and it would be nice to have such a material in the technology, because it's much better than everything I know of, but it's a long way. I expect about 20 or 30 years until you see something in technology which is really used. And I think also biomimicry helps in doing really deep innovation and disruptive innovation. Things you cannot think of if you follow your path and you optimize only what you have. What we are planning to do is we want to further develop the algorithms for lightweight optimization. We want to include multifunctionality, for instance, robustness, because often if you optimize such a structure, it is good as long as you don't have anything unexpected. And the load cases you get, the specifications you get are not ideal. They don't consider everything. They are just rules. Yeah, we want to integrate the optimization of material and structure. So if we find out something about how these complex forms have their composites arranged, of course we can also go and use normal material to create a better lightweight construction. So you can arrange traditional composites to arrange to make a better product. And we have a plan to integrate costs and sustainability in the whole product development process. So this would enable us to be much better already at an early stage of product development to see what the customers and the society really needs. Now, almost at the end, something complicated. You all know this innovation funnel probably. So you start off with a lot of ideas, and then you develop concepts, and then you end up with something which is really needed and which generates money. And in our case, We are quite good with these projects, with this process we have to be here, but we have a gap at this position. You see a little bit our team is situated here in the middle. Some are very far here, and we don't have much in the basic research. And that's the idea is to have everything together, to have a balance between idea development, concept development, and concept launch. We are not there right now, but I think we are moving into the right direction, and this is something I would like to discuss with you as well, because you have also a lot of experience here. Of course, such things can be only done if you have good corporations. And we cooperate, of course, with all sorts of other institutions. Of course, we have a lot of bachelor theses and master theses, and also PhD theses in our team. This is an example where a yacht builder from Amsterdam, Dijkstra, and yacht designers from Great Britain cooperate with us on the design of a sailing yacht with a length of about 46 meters. And the results are always very intriguing and fascinating. So we will be present at the Additive Manufacturing Fair in Frankfurt next week. So if you would like to come, and if you have the opportunity or happen to be there, just visit us. Otherwise, come to Bremerhaven, visit us, and talk to us. It's not that bad. Sometimes it looks very nice. And thank you very much for your attention.